Welcome, everyone, to the PFF Fantasy Podcast, IDP edition. I'm Jon Macri, and I am happy to be back for another week of start-sit IDP decisions, another week of racking our brains over who to trust and who to fire off into the sun, where we're getting to the part of the season where the contenders can start to separate themselves from the pretenders. So make sure you're not the latter. Lock in, listen up, and let's get it. All right, it's week 6. I think we've been apart long enough. After helping me put together that monster 3-down linebacker episode back in August, you knew it was only a matter of time before the Green Dot King returned to the show. This time to break down all the week 6 IDP matchups to consider. The one and only Mr. Mike Woellert is back. Mike, what is up, my man?
What's going on, John? I can't believe we're already a third of the way through the season, and I mean that episode we did feels like a few weeks ago. I mean a combination of a few weeks ago and forever ago, but yeah, third of the way through, and yeah, like you said, things are kind of starting to normalize, and trends are now showing, and data's kind of now we're getting some good samples. So I think you're kind of who you are right now, and the players are kind of who they are right now.
Yeah, it's getting to that nice point in the season where we can definitely start to rely on the data a lot more, right? Because the sample sizes are pretty big. We can start sorting out the guys that have only played less than 50% or 50 snaps and things like that. So getting some decent samples and utilizing the data is what we do here. So we're definitely going to be doing that again this week. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited. This is like you said, third of the way through the season, so no time to kind of give up on the season. It's still early enough that even those 1-4 teams and stuff can make a push for the playoffs to just get in, and that's kind of what we're looking to do. But for those teams that are up and at the top of the standings as well, make sure you keep your foot on the pedal, and we're going to try to help you do that. So we're going to go game by game, break down all the key IDP information to get you ready for the week ahead. And again, if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, we will have the timestamps for each game in the episode description as well. So you can jump around, find the games and players that you're looking for. I'll also have the IDP fantasy report in the episode description, IDP Rankings article linked in the episode description as well. So all those tools to kind of help you through the week here. But Mike, let's get into it and start with Thursday night football, the San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. Where do you want to start with these two teams?
So I'll start kind of with the defensive line. I think for this week, I am definitely interested in. I know this is a stretch. It's a bold move saying I'm definitely interested in Nick Bosa. San Francisco's a nickel heavy defense, and from what I can tell is that when San Francisco's in their nickel, Bosa's on the right. He's on the left side of the defense over the right tackle. And if this is going to be the case for the entire game, he's going to feast on Stone Forsythe. Stone Forsythe has a 40.4 pass block grade. So between Nick Bosa's 0.67 burst off the snap and his 2.8 time to pressure, I mean, I'm not going to call it a multi-sack game, but I mean, this is pretty much going to be close to a blow-up spot as Bosa will have. So I really like Bosa. Unfortunately for Floyd, he's going to be on Trent Williams' side of the field. So I'm tempering any really expectations, and Floyd's been anyway. So I'm really tempering expectations on Leonard Floyd's production this week anyway.
Right. Yeah. Charles Cross's side, right? Yeah. The left tackle there for the Seahawks. He's been good. And then, like you said, Stone Forsythe.
Oh, Charles Cross. Yeah. Where am I getting Trent Williams from? Jesus Christ.
For the 49ers.
Yes, man. That's I'm skipping ahead to the Seahawks side. No, yeah, the left tackle for Seattle is actually a pretty good pass blocker.
Yeah, he's been solid, Charles Cross, and yeah, Stone Forsythe not so much, right? So yeah, definitely excited about Nick Bosa's potential here. I know Gino's done a pretty good job at avoiding sacks, but that offensive line has allowed a lot of pressure. And then the other part of this game, I mean, there's not like a whole ton. Like we kind of know who the 49ers are, right? Like it was nice
Yeah.
that Fred Warner didn't miss any games
Yep.
and came back last week. So we don't have to worry about not starting him or finding his replacement or anything like that. But
Yeah.
Talanoa Hufanga is hurt
He's,
again, right?
yeah, he's out a month. He's going to be out for a
Yeah.
month. It was just announced this an hour or two ago.
Okay.
And really, the San Francisco safeties, I don't know. They don't score well. So I really have no interest in any of the safeties. I am interested in the corners, especially Diamador Lenore. I know
Right.
the Seahawks, I think, are the top team in terms of tackles allowed to the position. They're allowing, so I mean, they're allowing catches, getting those receptions, and then getting the tackles. So I think I have in my initial rankings, I have Lenore as probably a top 3 or a top 4 corner. So Fred Warner for me is matchup proof. I think he's just one of those guys you just plug into your lineup. But I have no real interest in Devondre Campbell. From what I know, from what I can tell, the Seahawks are pretty stingy when it comes to tackles allowed. I think they're allowing the least amount of tackles.
Yeah.
So I'll start Fred Warner in hopes that he gets most of them. But other than that, I'll have probably Devondre Campbell ranked pretty low, and it's
Mhm.
basically going to be an LB streamer, a desperate play. With bye weeks, I know we got another 4 teams, so maybe an LB4, LB5. Maybe you can hope he gets like 4 or 5 tackles and maybe a defended pass or something like that.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Campbell kind of one of those matchup dependent guys, and like you said, Seahawks allowing the fewest tackles per game to the linebacker position, and I like the call there for the corners as well. The nice thing about Diamador Lenore too is he will move into the slot
Yep.
when the opposing offense is an 11 personnel, so that kind of helps his tackle protection as well. And yeah, Seahawks giving up the most tackles to the corners, but that's kind of the 49ers. How about on the Seahawks side of thing? Anything stand out to you for Seattle?
Another IR stint for Uchenna and
Yeah.
Woso, so he's going to be gone for the next 4 games after coming back. He's hurt again. I like Derek Hall. Honestly, he's going to avoid Trent Williams, I believe. So I think he's got the better matchup against McKivitz, who's allowed 5 quarterback hits. Then you've got Terrell Dotson and Jerome Baker. San Francisco is still pretty middle of the road when it comes to tackles allowed, but I like Dotson and Baker. If someone dropped Baker, I think you pick him up. He's back to 100% snap rate. So the Seahawks still back to featuring two off-ball linebackers. So I think in terms of starting Baker, I think if you have better options, you could probably start somebody over Jerome Baker just because of the tackles allowed to the position. I'm still starting Terrell Dodson just because of his role in the defense. As far as corners, I'm more interested in the safeties. So I think you can confidently start Julian Love and Rayshawn Jenkins. As far as the safeties go, I think you're good in terms of the 49ers are, I think, number 2 in terms of tackles allowed to the safety position. So I think you can confidently say, start Julian Love and Rayshawn Jenkins this week.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that makes sense. And yeah, do you have a preference like rest of season? Because one of the questions that I get a lot is, Tyrell Dodson or Jerome Baker, right? Especially Jerome Baker had the better tackle game last week, 14 tackles, and
Yep.
9 for Dodson. They both got a sack, interestingly enough. Like I know for me, I typically prefer Tyrell Dodson just because he's been more consistent. And,
Yep.
we've seen this from Jerome Baker before. We know that he's among the more inconsistent or inefficient linebackers as far as tackling. And it's a new defense and stuff. So maybe that helps him rest of the season. But do you have a preference yourself for these two?
For me, I'm probably going to take the guy that's calling the plays, because if for whatever reason Seattle decides to go with a more single linebacker or a more dime heavy look, it's Baker that's going to come off the field, and it's not Dodson. So if I was going to pick between the two, I'm definitely going to favor the green dot guy that's calling the plays. That's not going to leave the field.
Yeah, I like that. All right. And then, yeah, like you said, Derek Hall, nice volume based kind of option here. He's been productive already. I think 5 sacks already on the year, which is crazy. And yeah, Uchenna's out. I mean, Boye Mafe might be out again. I don't know. I think he's back in there right now for us. But he'll be questionable kind of coming into the week. But yeah, Derek Hall, nice matchup based option if you need a streamer this week. But anything else from this Thursday night game, or should we move on to the Sunday slate?
No, I think we can probably, I think we can move on.
Let's do it. And before we do, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends at DraftKings. The best part of football season, checking out the post-game stats. Which wideouts scored more than 2 touchdowns? Which quarterbacks threw for less than 350 yards? Think you can pick who will do what before kickoff? Then play Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, select between 2 and 6 players, and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. It's that simple. And for all first-time Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers play $5 on your first Pick 6 set. Get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code PFF. That's code PFF for new customers to play $5 on your first Pick 6 set. Get $50 in Pick 6 credits only at DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per customer. Non-withdrawable. Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. All right, let's go to the London game this week. The Jacksonville Jaguars at the Chicago Bears, technically. So we'll start with Jacksonville and Trayvon Walker coming off probably the best game of his career, 3-sack performance, 84.2 pass rush grade. I talked about him in the IDP recap for this week, but he hasn't been like the most consistent player with these types of kind of performances. At least so far in his career, right? So it'll be kind of interesting, I think, for me to see if he's, this could be a starting point for him, for a guy that was a first overall pick, super athletic. We knew would be kind of a project and take time in the NFL. And he did it in a difficult matchup against the Colts offensive line as well, which I thought was encouraging. He looked more dominant than he really ever has in the NFL. So definitely feeling some hope about Trayvon Walker. It's not the worst matchup this week. It could be a good test, at least for, consistency purposes. The Bears offensive line has done a nice job, but Caleb Williams has a tendency to take some sacks and hold on to the ball a little bit longer as well. So I don't hate this matchup for both Trayvon Walker and obviously Josh Hines-Allen as well, who mostly always starting. So how are you feeling about Walker? You think this is a sign of things to come, or kind of the same old story with him?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I took, Walker, without looking into him, like, okay, he's just a boom or bust guy. But, looking into some of his numbers, he's improving pretty much every week. He had one week where he just didn't do anything. He put up zeros, but I think week 4, he put up a 20% pressure rate. Overall on the season, he's he's under 3 seconds for time to pressure. He's just over a half of a second when it comes to his pressure bursts, his burst off the snap. He's getting quick pressure, so he's generating pressure in fewer than 2.5 seconds, and he's got a pretty decent sack percentage and a sack conversion rate. So he's got my attention now. I think I'm going to show him a little bit more respect. Obviously, when you're in the same draft class with Aiden Hutchinson, and Hutchinson is just exploding, is just unstoppable. It's unfair, but he hasn't been too bad, and he's got my attention. And we'll see. He's blitzing on most of his pass rush snaps. His tackle numbers, I don't think you're probably gonna, he's probably gonna be, he's still a decent big play specialist. But yeah, he's definitely got my attention for sure.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. He's playing a ton, right? So there's definitely potential there for a nice production floor, and then even to fall into some sacks. But like you said, the pass rush metrics haven't been terrible so far, so could be something nice to kind of keep an eye on. I think I have right now, like before finalizing my rankings, he's kind of like edge 27 for me. So not quite in the top 24, but he's pushed his way up because he wasn't quite near that even before that. So
yeah,
a
that's
nice
about
combination
where I have
of. Okay, nice. Yeah. So, if he starts to kind of deliver consistently with these pass rush metrics and the snap share is obviously there, then that will definitely move him up the rankings for sure.
I think if you have, there's an interesting trace, like say, for example, if you have if you're searching, if you're trying to decide between someone like Dorrance Armstrong or Chase Young and Trayvon Walker, I'm probably going to go with Walker this week.
Yep. I think that makes sense. Yeah, that's pretty much the range that I have them in. I have Armstrong in that range, Kyle Van Noy, Derek Hall. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then on the Jacksonville linebackers, we did see Devin Lloyd come back last week. He was dealing with a knee injury. Essentially played a full-time role. I thought that was really nice to see. Foyer's obviously still on injured reserve. So Devin Lloyd going to continue in that role, hopefully for as long as Foye Oluokun is out. Probably the only Jaguars linebacker worth trusting for me right now, especially after seeing what happened with Chad Muma last week. Essentially had his snaps reduced in favor of Ventrell Miller, where I don't even think Muma played in the fourth quarter in that game, and I didn't see anything injury related for him. I'm not sure if you saw anything different, but it's a good matchup for linebackers. Bears giving up the fourth most tackles per game to the position. So I do like Devin Lloyd this week, but I'm probably not trusting the other guys until we see something consistent.
Yeah, with Lloyd calling the plays and wearing the dot, he's the full-time guy. I mean, between injuries and bye weeks, you might need to start Miller if you're in a 4 to 5 line start. If you're like starting 4 to 5 linebackers, you might need. But if you're just in like a 2 to 3, then it's Devin Lloyd, and I think you can move on. But if you're in a deeper league, starting 4 to 5, I think you can conceivably consider Ventrell Miller, just because I think he is on the majority on the LB2 rotation side. He's getting majority of the snaps.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I got Miller ranked inside the top 60 linebackers this week. I did not put Chad Muma in there, but that's kind of where he is right now. But yeah, I mean the linebacker rotation is really frustrating there, and they haven't been good. So I'm hoping that Ryan Nielsen comes to his senses, sees that these guys probably don't need to be rotated, especially seeing that Chad Muma and Ventrell Miller haven't been great. So hopefully when Foye comes back, he could just leave him on the field like we've been hoping. But that's kind of it for Jacksonville for me. I don't know if you had anything else for them, but we could talk about the Chicago Bears here. Probably not that interesting of a defense, really, because we kind of know who these guys are, right? Jaquan Brisker, we like at safety, Kevin Byard as well. And then the same thing with the linebackers, TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, both 100% guys. So we can, start them most weeks here. It's not the best matchup against Jacksonville, but they're still full-time players. If you've been starting them, you probably continue to start them. So really the only thing I think, there a couple notes that I had here was Montez Sweat. He had a tough matchup last week against the Carolina Panthers, one of the best offensive lines in the league. Potentially better matchup this week going against Anton Harrison, the right tackle there for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 54.7 pass blocking grade for him, which ranks 60th among 77 offensive tackles. So he hasn't been great. So it could be a nice bounce back week for Montez Sweat. And then Kyler Gordon, for CB required leagues, he's kind of been somebody that is going to be more matchup dependent because he's that nickel corner for the Bears. And the Jaguars, they are a top 10 team in deploying 11 personnel rate on offense. So Kyler Gordon is going to stay on the field a little bit more this week. So if you've been starting him, if you feel like you need to start him, if you don't have options, it's not the worst week for Kyler Gordon either. But how are you feeling about this Bears defense?
I think the only thing also, I don't think Jaquan Brisker traveled.
Oh, really?
With the team, because I think he was in concussion. I think he also suffered a concussion on that hit on Trumbull. So I don't think he traveled with the team. I think he was going to try to get there if he was cleared later, maybe later in the week. So keep an eye on Brisker because I don't think he traveled.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, that'll be a Sunday morning game too. That like early morning. So definitely one to keep an eye on. As far as replacement goes, it was between Elijah Hicks and Jonathan Owens. Probably not going to be overly interested in either of those guys. Not worth kind of diving in there. So, yeah, just focus on Kevin Byard there. All right, let's go to the Houston Texans at the New England Patriots. Mike, where do you want to start here?
Well, with the pass rush, I think they have a pretty good matchup against an offensive line. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson both pass rush get-offs fewer than a half of a second or around a half of a second. 19.5% pressure rate for Hunter, a 7.5% quick pressure rate. So, I mean, again, he's generating pressure in less than 2.5 seconds. I do believe whoever lines up on Vidarian Lowe has been better. He hasn't allowed sacks over 96 pass block snaps, so his pass blocking has been a little bit better. Whoever lines up on DeMontre Jacobs is going to feast because I believe he has a 28.5 pass block grade. So he hasn't been great. And plus, it's Drake May's first start in the NFL. So we'll see if the lights are a little bit bright for him and he could hold on to the ball, take some sacks. And so as far as that goes, I still think between Will Anderson and Donnell Hunter, in some instances, I will trust them, over someone like a Vidarian Lowe who has been better, but I think with their pass rush metrics and their moves, I think they can easily get a sack themselves. So I think I will have both. I think I have both Hunter and Anderson probably within my top 10, top 12 edge rushers for the week. And as far as the linebackers, I mean, you two twos, Ted Henry, I mean, he's been a full-time linebacker for most of the season. He's he's had 85% of the snaps or more in 4 of the 5. His his line, his tackles have just been inconsistent. And if I don't have to start him this week, I won't. I'll still continue to start Azeez Al-Shaair. I think New England has allowed fewer tackles to linebackers, fewer than their average over the last few weeks. So it could be an interesting, could be a tougher matchup, but I mean, it could open up things in the run. So who knows with Drake May, what this offense is going to bring. I'll trust Azeez Al-Shaair. Tioto, I maybe bench this week.
Fair. It'll be interesting to see kind of how this New England offense kind of operates with the rookie quarterback under center here. So I'm just realizing I have the pressure to sack conversion rate on the screen there, but that's for Jacoby Brissett, not for Drake May, obviously, who hasn't played a snap. So that'll change. It potentially change, what the offense looks like. But I'm with you. Like, I think Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, those are two guys that people have been kind of frustrated by so far this season because they haven't been putting up the big numbers and falling behind some of the other top edge rushers. But this definitely kind of stands out as a get right week for both of those guys potentially. Danielle Hunter specifically, he's been performing really well. I mean, you laid out some of the numbers there, but he's been top 15 player at his position, even though the sack numbers haven't quite been there. We'll see what happens with Will Anderson. He's been a little bit slow in that regard. Hasn't quite looked like his rookie version of himself, but I like the matchup this week quite a bit. So I think both of these guys will have a chance to deliver. And then the only other thing for the Texans safeties, Jimmy Ward did come back last week, but then he got injured again with a groin injury. So Eric Murray kind of stepped into the Jimmy Ward role. And he actually played 37% of his snaps in the box, which was kind of nice to see. It's kind of just an average matchup for safety tackles, but if you're desperate in need there and hope and think that the Drake May experiment could end up being a pretty good thing for the Patriots offense, then we could see those numbers kind of come up a bit, and Eric Murray could be a nice streaming option at the safety position. But on the New England side, Mike, as far as safeties go, we got a pretty big change here for the New England defense, safety / linebacker, Marte Mapu. What did you see from him last week?
Yeah, played 50% of the snaps last week as an off-ball linebacker, and with Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers out, he actually ended up wearing the dot, so he was calling the plays. Now Jabril Peppers is in some pretty serious trouble. I mean, strangulation. I mean, Jesus, that's not good. Never want to see people acting out a horror movie with strangulation. Kyle Duggar, I think he's still in question. So I thought when he suffered his initial injury, he might miss a few games. So I think with Duggar, with Duggar's status and now Jabril Peppers' status, I think Mapu is probably a really nice waiver pickup. Will be a really nice streamer. I mean, Houston allowing the most points or most, they're allowing the most points to opposing safeties. So I think Mapu's in a pretty good spot, even if Duggar does come back. I mean, between Mapu's new rule and the New England linebackers are just they're awful. If Tavai should be thanking Raekwon McMillan that he's on the team because he's the worst graded linebacker on the team. Tavai is second worst, so those snaps are slowly starting to decrease. I know over the last couple of weeks he went from a 100% snap share. I think he went down to the 93. Went down to the 80s. Now he's at about 85%. So I think the those warts are starting to show. So if you have to play Jelani Tavai, okay, but as of right now, if I don't have to start any of the New England linebackers, I am probably not.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid them as well. Like it's just not a good group. I mean, like you said, that with Jawan Bentley out, like over the past two games, we've kind of seen Jelani Tavai's role get cut on like
Mhm.
obvious passing downs, right? Third and fourth down. He's
Yeah,
been coming off the field a lot. He only played 21% of those snaps this
yeah,
past week, right? So that kind of tells me that the teams don't really trust him. It's interesting that they appeared more comfortable in deploying Christian Ellis on those
yeah,
downs
yep,
instead, but we'll
yeah,
see if that
yeah,
kind of sticks going forward. But yeah, for now, like I'm not trusting Jelani Tavai as much, like outside of really, really deep leagues. But I'm with you. I think Marte Mapu could be one of the top waiver wire claims for this week as well. Like a nice combination of safety snaps, and
mhm,
obviously those linebacker snaps are really nice as well. So he would definitely be
yep,
somebody that I'd be interested in, even if it's just for the short term. I think he's worth
yep,
kind of picking up here. Um,
yep,
and then Keon White, I do want to highlight him really quickly. He kind of lines up everywhere, but
yep.
right tackle is where it's at, right? Blake Fisher could be in again if Titus Howard can't go, and Blake Fisher equals not good. He hasn't been a great replacement, and I just kind of like Keon White, everything that he's really done this year, especially where he's a DT on MFL. But Keon White, pass rush metrics are there, playing
Yep.
time is there. This is a guy I think that continues to be one of the top starting options in IDP for his position, and turning out to be one of the better waiver claims from the early part of this season.
Yeah, I just want to see some sacks. I don't think he's had a sack
Yeah,
since week 2, but he's generating consistent pressure. Those metrics tell us that he's been close on a few sacks. He's gotten QB hits in 3 straight games. So it's just that millisecond, just that
yep.
timing just needs to pick up that timing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he can get there for sure. All right, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. Titans coming out of a bye week this week. So we did see Laiatu Latu play a new career high in snap share last week. He's been really good in run defense, like carving out a nice kind of 3-down role here for the defense because of the injuries, but also because he's proving himself to be one of the better options on early downs. He's an 87.4 or it did post an 87.4 run defense grade this past week. And Kwity Paye is still questionable, but I think Latu is going to get on the field even still because of the injuries to guys like Taekwon Lewis as
Mhm,
well. But
mhm.
um, he may also get Nicholas Petit-Frere, who is one of our favorite players to go
Oh, yes.
after
Yes.
for pass rushers, because yeah, he has struggled, and it's a nice matchup, right? Like the Titans pass blocking unit is bottom 10 in the league. Will Levis is has the third highest pressure to sack conversion rate in the league, so there's definitely potential here. I know Latu hasn't like shown the pass rush chops just yet, but if there's a matchup to do it, this is kind of the one, right?
Yeah, and even if Dayoe Enigbo gets some snaps, he's going to
Yep.
get some time on Petit Frere. I don't mind Grover Stewart in DT required leagues just because he should line up over Cushenberry, who is I think rated 29th out of 35 potentially graded centers. So some potential for some pressure, some tackles there as well. So I think Latu, yeah, like you said, is starting to pick some things up. Game looks to be slowing down a little bit for him. And but yeah, like I said, Deo Adenigbo could be a streamer in a pretty good matchup.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And then Kenny Moore, I don't know if Kenny Moore will be back this week. I haven't seen anything significant about him returning to practice or anything like that, but Chris Lamons has kind of been the fill in for him. The Titans do play an above average rate of 11 personnel, so Kenny Moore would get his slot snaps in there. But Titans offense just has been so poor that there hasn't been a lot for defensive backs, at least yet. So just
Yeah,
something to keep an eye on there.
yeah. And then with that in red, the tackles allowed per game to the safety position. I think you need to temper some expectations on Nick Cross and Julian Blackman. I mean, you'll probably still start Nick Cross, but I don't think this is a bad week to sit him.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick Cross he's got the better alignments, right? So that like I don't mind,
Yep.
if you have to play him, if you've been
Yep.
playing him, right? And you don't necessarily need to like drop him or move on from him or anything like that. But yeah, Julian Blackman's the one kind of playing that more of that deep role. I think his over under was at 6.5 total tackles last week, and was a nice bet for the under again because of the matchup. If it's around that range, I'll probably take that again, but I'm not playing him um, in IDP formats, and
Yep.
expecting more of the under as we get things going here for Julian Blackman. But there'll be better matchups for Cross for sure.
Yep.
And then on the Titans side, like not a whole lot here coming out of the bye week for them. Again, not like the most exciting defense. They do have Ernest Jones and Kenneth Murray, though. We've seen these guys, both of them have been full-time players now since week 2. We didn't have to wait long for Ernest Jones to get there, which was nice.
Yep.
But yeah, like it's not a great matchup either for tackles allowed. I mean, the Indianapolis offense has just been not great. So that has really kind of hurt the opposing IDPs that they're facing. So they're 30th in tackles allowed to the linebacker position. So it's not a great matchup for Ernest Jones and Kenneth Murray. Do you have a preference for either one of these two guys, either for this week or rest of season?
I think rest of season, I think I'm fairly confident in going with either one. It'll be interesting to see though what happens with the tackles with, I guess, Joe Flacco at quarterback, who is experienced. I mean, it might open things up better for the linebackers, so we'll just have to see. So
Yeah.
I think Richardson, I think, is out again. I don't know if they've done anything with him in terms of putting him in IR, but I do think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to play. So it'll be interesting to see what how things are with Joe Flacco. But yeah, I'll continue to play both until something happens. I mean, Kenneth Murray obviously is the worst of the graded linebackers. I think he's like 72nd out of 79 linebackers who are like, I think have played more than 50% of their snaps. So not great, but at the same time, I think as the play caller, his role really isn't in doubt or in question at this point. So I think you can continue to play him. But in terms of, I guess, any of the other positions, I guess if you want to play Amani Hooker as a streamer, as a DB streamer, the Colts aren't a horrible matchup for safeties. I know over the last 3, they've allowed almost 18 tackles a game to the safety position over the last 3 games. So not a horrible matchup, but Amani Hooker really, though, hasn't been an elite producer or even an average producer. So if you're desperate, it is a good matchup.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like this Tennessee defense is not like the best, kind of group of guys to even L'Jarius Sneed hasn't been like
No.
all that great, right? But tough matchup for the pass rushers on the Tennessee side of things, right? Getting Braden Smith and Bernard Raymond as well, the offensive tackles there. So not loving that for Harold Landry and Arden Key, but there's going to be leagues where you don't have better options than like a Harold Landry, for example. So we'll see if he can deliver, but hasn't had the strongest pass rush metrics either this year, but has been playing a lot. So that's been nice for Landry. All right, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints. Where do you want to start with these two guys?
So as far as the linebacker position, I think I actually have Britt and David in my top 25. I think I've got David as my LB5, and I think I have Britt as my LB25, just because of the matchup. Saints have been a pretty good matchup for opposing linebackers. As we saw, Bolton, he got 11 tackles. Drew Tranquil had, I think, 5 or 6, but he had his snap scaled back. So I still think the Saints are a pretty good matchup for opposing linebackers. So I think both of those guys you can start pretty confidently. Logan Hall has got my attention along with Yaya Diaby. Diaby's been a really good rusher. The sacks haven't been there, but Logan Hall, he's got 3 sacks in his last 2 games. He's got at least a 60% snap rate in 3 consecutive games. The seasonal pressure rate is a little ugly at 6.3, but he's got a 2.4 second time to pressure. And his pressure rate is actually a little bit better when he lines up as an edge rusher. 46% of his snaps have been from the edge. He's got an 8.7% pressure rate from the edge with a 2.25 second time to pressure. So That's impressive. I think that's pretty impressive for a man of his size. And
Mhm.
he should match up on Landon Young, who has an 11.5 pass block grade. So I think Logan Hall is actually in a pretty good spot this week. So again, a pretty good waiver wire pickup. Someone that you can stream this week in a very good matchup.
Yeah, I like the Logan Hall call. I think for DT required leagues too, right? Like that's he's getting a nice snap share there,
Yep.
especially last week was around 67%, something like
Yep.
that. So
Yep.
yeah, I think I you kind of roll with the hot hand here, and like you said, the matchup is pretty nice as well. And Derek Carr is not going to play either, so Saints are going to have a backup quarterback in there. I don't know if it'll be Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener, but yeah, not ideal for New Orleans offense, but a nice kind of matchup here for guys like a Yaya Diaby and Logan Hall as well. The only thing, like, other than that, like, I don't know if Antoine Winfield is going to be back this
And I
week,
think
right?
Whitehead is still, and I think Jordan Whitehead got hurt. So
He also,
we still don't really know with those two, because I
yeah,
mean Tyke Smith certainly took advantage of the matchup. I think as you either tweeted or you mentioned, Atlanta was in a lot of 11
yeah,
personnel, and I think you said New Orleans doesn't do a whole lot of 11 personnel, so
yeah.
that could limit some of Smith's production. But we still don't know as of right now what the status is on Antoine Winfield or Jordan Whitehead.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like if Winfield can't go, Christian Izzian, he's been a pretty good replacement and very nice for CB required leagues. And then if Jordan Whitehead can't go, Kayvon Merriweather could step in, and then Tyke Smith's kind of been the nickel, right? So
Yep.
yeah, like I said, he had a really nice game last week, 99% of snaps, but playing against the most 11 personnel heavy offense in the NFL with Atlanta. So he was going to stay on the field there because of the opposing offense.
Mhm.
He yeah, he played lower snap shares all the 4 previous weeks, because they face teams that rank average or worse in 11 personnel rate. And then this week, the Saints rank 31st in 11 personnel rate. So I'm
Yep.
not considering Tyke Smith like a safe start right now, coming off that big game. I think one of those maybe matchup dependent guys, when they face more 11 personnel heavy teams, and then I'll try to
So are the
highlight those
Saints
guys.
more like 12? Are they running more 2 tight ends?
Yeah, more 12, more 21
Yep.
personnel. So
Okay.
they're just one of those offense like a Baltimore kind of as well, right? Those teams that really don't have like a lot of 3 wide receiver looks. Which I mean makes sense when you look at who their wide receivers are. It's just Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, anyways, right? So
Yep. Yep.
yeah, run heavy as well. So those things kind of all play into it, right? But
If
yeah,
I was
so
gonna if I was gonna play, I mean, if Winfield is active, then I think you play Winfield. I think he's a
yeah,
pretty safe bet. I actually, mentioning some of the corners, I actually like Jamel Dean. So
mm,
I think with the corners, I think Saints are also a top team in cornerback tackles allowed. So Jamel Dean's been pretty productive over the last couple of weeks. So I do like Jamel Dean in cornerback required leagues.
yeah, it's a good call. He's been really excellent so far. Um, how about on the Saints side of things? Anything stand out to you? I know we didn't get Pete Werner last week, but we did get an Anthony Orgy replacing him. So, any interest in Orgy if Werner can't go again?
If he can't go, yes, I will be joining the orgy. But if Werner is active, then I am not participating in the orgy. I will not be a part of that. Werner had an illness, so it wasn't anything injury related. So it
Right.
must have been a pretty nasty illness. So we'll just have to keep an eye on his status. But it isn't an injury, so at least
Yeah.
that's a good thing. It was just an illness that he was dealing with, and he was declared out pretty quick. I mean, they declared him out Sunday, so you knew, right? You knew pretty early that Werner was not going to play.
Yeah. That's what was kind of weird about it. That's why I kind of keep him as like a question mark for this week because
Yep.
he was ruled out
Yep.
early. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's not like we're not necessarily rushing to the waiver wire for Anthony Orgy
Mhm.
there. It's not the best matchup either. There's Bucks giving up 28th most tackles per game to the linebacker position, so they're well
Yep.
below average in that regard. But other than that, I mean, Carl Granderson continues to be excellent as far as pass rushing goes. Baker Mayfield has definitely been allowing pressures to turn into sacks a little bit more, even though the offensive line has been pretty good. So I tend to trust that for somebody like a Carl Granderson. But
Yep.
other than that, I don't know. I mean,
No,
injuries at the safety position, kind of. So
yeah, I mean, you'll continue to play Paulson Adebo
yep.
and Alante Taylor. Those,
Yes.
I think you can play those guys in DB general. I don't think those guys are limited to CB required leagues.
Yeah.
I'm not playing Chase Young. He's going to see a lot of Tristan Wirfs, so I have no interest in Chase
Right.
Young this week.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I love the corners for the Saints, Alante Taylor and Paulson Adebo. They'll be ranked high, and then for Taylor's
Mhm.
purposes too, like Tampa Bay is one of those teams that plays a more 11 personnel as well, so he'll have a nice safe role in the slot there for a good chance to produce.
Yeah, I mean, because he should see a lot of Chris Godwin. So I
Yeah.
mean, if I'm not mistaken, so Adebo should probably see. I don't know if he's going to I don't know if he's a shadow guy or if he stays on one end, but I mean, he should still see plenty of Mike Evans to make him
Oh, I hope we get more
usable. Yeah.
Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, get a little. Is that the new Andre Johnson, Cortland Sutton?
Yeah, yeah. Cortland, yeah, Cortland. What was his name?
No, not Cortland Sutton.
Yeah,
Finnegan.
Cortland Finnegan. Yeah, Cortland
Yes.
Finnegan. That's his name. There you go.
Yep.
Oh man, yeah, good call. All right, let's go to the Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles. Mike, start with the Browns. The linebacker position, we kind of have started to see what it is. I know there's been some injuries there, but JOK, he left last game with just cramping, so I think he should be fine. He's the full-time guy there. Devin Bush stepped into the L2 role last because Jordan Hicks was out, but I don't know if you've heard anything about Jordan Hicks coming back or not this week, but if not, Devin Bush, a fine start in like deeper leagues, right?
Yeah, I think I think we have practices tomorrow. So Hicks was dealing with a bunch of different things. I think he was dealing with like
Mhm.
an elbow and a hamstring and maybe an Achilles. So I think you don't need to worry. I don't think I would waste time on Winston Reed. I know Winston Reed had like 8 tackles,
Right.
but I think he played. I want to say he was in that 20 to 30% snap rate. So I wouldn't waste a waiver pick on Winston Reed. But yeah, JOK, he wore the dot for the Browns last week. And yeah, like you said, Devin Bush got the majority of the snaps. Bush even took over the dot when JOK left. So
Mhm.
so he'll be an interesting play, but yeah, we'll have to see what happens with the practice reports with Jordan Hicks. I mean, at this point, I would say at best he's probably going to be questionable heading into the week.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then, yeah, Winston Reed too. Like, I think he played mostly in the fourth quarter as well, right?
Yeah.
When JOK was out of the game.
Yep.
So we're not going to fall into that trap. Other than that, for the Browns, Myles Garrett coming off a 0. People weren't happy about that, but that's not happening again. Even in a tougher matchup against the Eagles, we don't ever get panicked about Myles Garrett. This is one of the best pass rushers in the league, if not the best pass rusher in the league. So continue to start him. And then the safeties, Mike. I wanted to ask you kind of what your thoughts are on this safety group, because it's been kind of a constantly changing with Juan Thornhill on IR. We've seen Ronnie Hickman in there a few times. Grant Delpit had suffered a head injury last week. Like if Delpit's playing, I trust him, but the rest of the safeties, I don't know how much I trust.
Yeah,
for
outside of Grant Delpit, I usually don't. I've never really sought out any of the Cleveland safeties.
Yeah. Yeah. They're usually the other guy is playing like a lot deeper, like specifically Juan Thornhill as an example, because Delpit's kind of the guy that comes down and rotates towards the line of scrimmage. So that's always the player to target there. But yeah, for those deeper leagues, I think we just kind of avoid the group even for now, just until we get something consistent or until Juan Thornhill comes back.
Yep.
On the Eagles side of things, they have a very nice matchup, and I'm sorry to say, Mike, against the Swiss cheese offensive line of the
No, it's
Cleveland
been not fun to watch.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah, not
brutal.
great.
I don't know. I mean, Deshaun Watson as well. Like again, just taking a ton of sacks. The Browns' offensive line allowing a ton of pressure. So Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, maybe even Bryce Huff. Maybe he could get in on it this week. We'll see. But those guys should be able to kind of take advantage of this matchup, just like every other team has been able to do. Because it doesn't seem like the Browns are willing to make a change there with the quarterback.
No, I mean they allowed 7 sacks last week. I think the Giants feasted on them I think the Giants feasted on them. Yeah, and if Huff can't get a sack, then I don't think there's any hope for him this season if he can't get one off this week. But yeah, I mean, you got Josh Sweat, you've got Bryce Huff. Heck, you can even have Brandon Graham. I mean, all of these guys are streamers this week. Just is not a great. It's not. I mean, Watson's either holding the ball too long, or these guys are getting beat. I think Bill Callahan, losing Bill Callahan has definitely been a huge loss. DeJuan Jones does not look in any way, shape, or form what he did last season. The guards are, Teller, I think, is hurt. Zach Zinter played his first game, didn't look great. So yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a good time.
No, it doesn't feel like it, right? Like it's just, I understand like there's injuries and stuff, but they just have not been able to adjust. It's been terrible. And I'm looking at the total pressures allowed numbers right now. Cleveland has allowed 158 total pressures. That is obviously the highest mark in the league. The next closest team is the New England Patriots at 122. So 36 more pressures than any other team in the league right now, and that's led to the most sacks allowed as well with 31.
I think as a team, it's a 45% or so pressured rate allowed. It's not it's not good. They went from one of the best offensive lines to one of the worst, and are just looking really old too, which really stinks too.
So definitely looking to start our Eagles pass rushers where we can. But other than that, I mean, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, they've been solid here as 100% players. Devin White released, so he's no longer have to ask the question, is Devin White going to work in there? I mean, it didn't seem like it was going to happen anyways.
No, but he was a healthy and active for all the games leading up to the bye week. And then I thought I read something before their bye that Cooper DeJean could be a full-time slot, so that could be incoming. I don't know if it's a good matchup. I mean, he'd probably be facing Elijah Moore, and just Moore doesn't seem to be getting the targets, but something to definitely keep an eye on is if Cooper DeJean is going to have a full-time role, maybe in the slot. And I do like Quinion Mitchell as a cornerback streamer.
Quinion Mitchell's been good. And Cooper DeJean, like if he does play, the Browns are one of those more 11 personnel heavy offenses. They play the third highest rate in the league at 79%. So if that happens with Cooper DeJean, I know a lot of people have kind of been waiting on that. Then there's definitely some potential there for IDP purposes this week. So good shout, and definitely something to keep an eye on this week. All right, let's go to the Arizona Cardinals at the Green Bay Packers. Where would you like to start here, Mike?
Well, I don't want to start with their edge rushers because they have a awful, just not a good pass rush at all. But the linebacker position, I mean, they're featuring 2 off-ball linebackers. So Mac Wilson has, I think, 3 straight games now of at least 85% snap share. So I think you can kind of start him with some relative confidence. I mean, Green Bay is a top 10 in terms of points allowed and tackles allowed to the position. I think they've allowed 10 plus tackles to 5 linebackers: EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin, Zach Bond, Ernest Jones, and Blake Cashman. So pretty decent matchup. Mac Wilson can get some of those big plays. So it looks like they're, Arizona's featuring 2 off-ball linebackers right now. I mean, obviously, if I had to choose between one, I'm starting Kazir White every week, but Mac Wilson, I think you can play this week with some bye weeks and injuries.
I think this week, I think he's fine to play because I do like the matchup, like you said. He's played more these past 3 weeks, but I think some of that is situational for how they deploy these guys, because the weeks 3 to 5, they've played some of the most run heavy offenses in the NFL. So Detroit, Washington, San Francisco, all those are top 10 teams in run rate. They get another one this week in Green Bay. They get the 3rd highest rate. So I think this week it is a decent bet, but like played 64% in week 1 against Buffalo, which they've been a surprisingly run heavy team, but his worst snap share was in week 2 against the Rams, who are well below average in run rate. Right. So that kind of signals that they are kind of deploying him in a situation specific manner, and that, more run heavy offenses, they'll use more linebackers, more pass heavy offenses. I think we could potentially see that snap share come down a little bit, but
Yep.
Yeah, just one to keep an eye, but I think a fairly safe option this week, even though he won't necessarily be 100% of snaps. And then, yeah, other than that, for Arizona, like you said, not overly excited about the defensive line there. I mean, yeah, I know Dennis Gardeck's been exciting at stuff at times, but the Packers' offensive tackles have been amazing. Jordan Love has been
Yes.
the best in the league at avoiding sacks. So really just kind of Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson, those guys have been great. Those are the other two that I think we're really considering this week.
Yeah, I mean, Buddha, I think, is an every week starter, 52% of the snaps on the line of scrimmage.
Oh, yeah.
I think Green Bay's sixth in points allowed to the safety position, so pretty good matchup from points. Middle of the road for tackles, but I mean, I think Budda Baker is one of those, is a matchup proof guy. You're going to start him. Jalen Thompson, probably more of the streamer. You can probably bench him for other options, but yeah, other than that, Arizona, I mean, I think Gardeck had that first week out of the gate and just hasn't done anything since. So, like I said, and then Zaven Collins, he'll get some tackles, but he doesn't really excite me from a pass rush standpoint. I guess for dynasty people, Darius Robinson, I think, is coming off of IR, so he might play this week. So we are interested to see how he's deployed and what he's able to do.
Yeah, hopefully somebody can spark some pass rush life into that defensive line, because it's not good.
No.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Packers here for a little bit, Mike. Anybody that you want to start with in Green Bay?
As far as linebackers go, I mean, Quay Walker, you'll start anyway, but I think really we need to keep an eye on the LB2 situation with Edrin Cooper starting to get a little bit more snaps. Isaiah McDuffie, I think he had one of his lowest snap rates this past week. So it's starting to reach that midpoint where some of the rookies might start to get more chances. I know Cooper, if I'm not mistaken, he graded as either the first or second best defender last week, so he's definitely starting to stand out. So if you're an Isaiah McDuffie owner, you might want to pick up Edrin Cooper's maybe a handcuff, but you definitely want to keep an eye on to see what kind of usage he's getting in the defense with Cooper starting to emerge. But Rasheem Gary, I'm going to censor what you wrote in the. I don't want to get censored. I want to get demonetized. So Rashawn Gary definitely has been a little bit of a disappointment. He's got two straight with zero pressures. He's definitely fallen off as a must start. I'll probably have him outside of my top 50. He'll probably still be within my top 60 rankings as far as the defensive line, but he's definitely been a little bit of a disappointment these last couple of weeks. He's had a couple of goose eggs, and it's definitely, Preston Smith has definitely outperformed him, but Lucas Van Ness even hasn't gotten the usage that I thought he was going to get. I think we were expecting a little bit more of a breakout season, but he just hasn't gotten the usage in the defense yet to really justify, starting him at this point.
Yeah, it's been not great for Rashawn Gary there. I wrote about him in the IDP report this week. Just been a ghost essentially, right? Even in a good matchup last week against the Rams, like his pass rush metrics weren't as bad as initially thought. Like he had a 25% win rate, but zero pressures, right? So he's winning, but the ball's already out. So there's nothing that he's going to do there. But he ranks outside the top 75 players at his position in almost all the pass rush metrics this year. And that was, again, going against a really nice matchup in the Rams. It's not better than that. So here in Arizona, so I'm just not trusting him either. I'm with you. He's going to be way down the ranks for me. Devontae Wyatt is somebody that I am interested in DT required leagues. Like he's been excellent. He's just been hurt. He missed last week. But otherwise, he's been awesome for DT required leagues. He's got some pass rush metrics to him, some playing time as well. So really hoping we get to see him back. And then the DBs for Green Bay kind of got moved around with Jair Alexander out, right? So with Jair Alexander out last week, we saw Keyshawn Nixon play more on the outside. We saw Javon Woellert move to the slot. We saw Evan Williams move to safety. It was a whole kind of domino effect of how these guys were deployed. Yeah. So Jair Alexander very clearly affecting, whether he's in or out of the lineup affects kind of how these guys are utilized. So I think that's just something to kind of keep in mind. I don't know if Evan Williams will necessarily hold the safety role over Javon Bullard. That wasn't the case prior to this week. So it could just kind of reverse back to what it was and put Keyshawn Nixon back in the slot, all that kind of stuff. Arizona has been, let me see here, they're well below average in 11 personnel rate this season, around 53%. So if Jair Alexander is back, it's not necessarily the best matchup for Keyshawn Nixon, and Arizona giving up the 25th most tackles to the cornerback position as well. So could be a week to kind of bench Keyshawn Nixon, just being that more matchup dependent guy if Jair Alexander is back in.
Yeah, and I don't think you necessarily need to spend a waiver pick or a waiver priority or any of your position on Evan Williams. So, like you said, it's one of those domino effects. The everything kind of fell in place for Williams, and I think the big thing has been Xavier McKinney. I mean, he's been a really solid addition in the defensive backfield. I mean, is he going to get 17 interceptions this season? I doubt it, but boy, he's tracking the ball, and
it's crazy.
He's been a obviously a really good addition to that defense.
Yeah. 5 straight games with an interception. I mean, he can't complain there. The guy's been excellent. He was one of the highest graded coverage safeties last year. I think he was actually maybe the highest, if I remember correctly, and just continuing to be excellent. So well worth the signing there for the Green Bay Packers. And I think for IDP purposes, you just start him, and hope he keeps it going.
I think at this, and I think if you want to sprinkle in for those that partake in some gambling, may not be a bad idea to throw a couple of bucks at Defensive Player of the Year, because if he's going to continue to get the interceptions, I mean, he's well on pace for double digits. I mean, is 10 out of the picture the way he's playing? I don't know, but I mean, there's not really anybody that's maybe outside of Aiden Hutchinson that's really kind of running away from like a sack standpoint or a pass rush standpoint. So I think McKinney could definitely be in play for a Defensive Player of the Year conversation.
Nice. I like it. All right, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Las Vegas Raiders. And I guess we'll start with the edge rushers for Pittsburgh. Not necessarily TJ Watt. We know who he is. We're starting him. But freaking Nick Herbig injured last week. He's going to be out this week. Alex Highsmith is still out. He's not going to play. Might not be back till next week. So Nick Herbig, I really liked his potential, especially going into last week. I think he even kind of got robbed of an extra half sack on that TJ Watt full sack. I think if that was the other way around, TJ Watt would have got credited for a half sack. Nick Herbig did not. Even actually,
he got the recovery though. Didn't he get the fumble recovery?
Oh yeah, no, that play. But then there was the other sack.
Oh
Watt, and Herbig was kind of right in there as well. Like that's kind of one where I figure like, if that was TJ Watt coming in late, they would have gave him the half sack just because he's TJ Watt, right? But and then Herbig also kind of robbed of a QB hit. So I'll be curious if there's maybe stat correction there, but still early in the week. But I really liked Nick Herbig last week. It was nice to see him get that half sack and the fumble recovery. But I'm not interested in Jeremiah Moon. No disrespect to him, but just not the same level of player.
Who else do they have? I mean, they don't. I mean, that's it. I mean, who are you going to put on there's nobody else on the edge really.
Yeah, I think they just ride it out here this week against the Raiders, who they could probably beat without, another star edge rusher, and hope that Alex Highsmith is back for the week after this, and then they can get back to business as usual. But other than that, I mean, Patrick Queen has kind of been just a matchup dependent linebacker at this point. Like, he is playing a full-time snap. We talk about him every week now, but he's been a below average linebacker, and this is a below average matchup for linebacker tackles. So again, he's going to be outside of that must start range for me this week.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make. We might have even said it in the 3-down article or in the 3-down episode, but it just doesn't seem like the LBs in Pittsburgh are they're there. They are, they make some plays, but like aren't like high volume producers. The one thing also to keep an eye on is Peyton Wilson. He is starting to outsnap Landon Roberts, and it was pretty significant last week. I think it was almost 2-1. I think it was 44-21 in terms of the snaps last week. So Peyton Wilson is starting to kind of chisel his way into more playing time. And I mean, Patrick Queen's grades have settled back to pre-Roquan Smith in Baltimore, and that wasn't good. He's missing tackles. He seems to just be late on plays, and the misses are obviously are very glaring, very, very obvious. So I don't know, something to also consider. I mean, Tomlin is a no nonsense coach, and if someone isn't playing well, I don't think he hesitates to make some changes. And Queen's contract isn't I don't think it forces him to stay on the field if I recall correctly.
I'm with you. He's just been poor. He's not been good. And it was one we definitely talked about a lot this offseason, because his ADP was just so high. It was pretty crazy. And somebody that I had outside the top 20 linebackers, that was probably the ranking that I got the most pushback on, as far as keeping him outside the top 20. And like, I get the reasoning for putting him there, but like at the same time, there was just too many other options that had a better history of efficiency. And Queen is just one of those guys that just hasn't been very efficient at all, been among the worst in the league. So I am with you. And definitely keeping an eye on Peyton Wilson, 58% last week compared to 28% for Landon Roberts. So definitely kind of trending in the right direction, and might not ever be like a full-time role this season unless something happens to Queen, but still nice to kind of see the rookie get some play there.
Yep. And he's efficient with the snaps, it seems.
Yeah, that helps. 20.5% tackle rate last week. So that was nice. All right. On the Raiders side of things, Christian Wilkins is going to be out. He took a foot surgery. So just more injuries for the Raiders. Anybody outside of Max Crosby that is of interest to you? I mean, Robert Spillane, for sure. Right, Mike?
No explanation needed on that one.
There you go. Nice. Very nice.
But plus a revenge game. I mean, you have a revenge game too. Yeah. So, but yeah, so no, Spillane I have as my LB1. I'll have as my LB1 this week.
Nice. Yeah. Pittsburgh giving up the most tackles per game to the linebacker position. So Spillane in a really nice spot. Divine Diablo could be back. He's not a full-time player. If not, Luke Masterson's on IR. So another rookie, Tommy Eichenberg, kind of stepped into a starting role last week. But again, more part-time snaps, not necessarily somebody that's going to be a start in most leagues, but it is a nice matchup if you're in a desperate spot. All right, let's talk about the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens. Anywhere you would like to start with these two teams?
I mean, I think as far as linebackers go, it's Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. I mean, it's not it's a decent matchup. So, Bobby Wagner's Bobby Wagner. Louvu's going to get some tackles too, but yeah, it's a tough matchup. Baltimore a little bit better offensive, a little bit better from an offensive line. Especially when it comes to pass blocking. Sacks might be tough to come by, but they are 8th. But the Baltimore offensive line and offense is 8th allowed in tackles allowed to the defensive line, defensive end position. So buys might force you to pay guys like Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Dorrance Armstrong. So there is some upside for tackles. But in terms of sacks, I mean, Lamar Jackson gets the ball out quick, and he's just so elusive. So he's tough to bring down. But when the offensive line does break down, I mean, he will get sacks. But I think the offensive line has been a little bit better this season.
Yeah. No, they've been really good. I think they are the 3rd best pass blocking unit in the league right now as far as our grading goes. And Lamar has just been excellent as usual. At Washington, they had a field day last week, obviously against the Browns. Sorry, Mike. And then obviously Lamar Jackson better at avoiding sacks than Deshaun Watson. But Dorrance Armstrong looked really great. He's looked pretty good this season. 32% win rate last week, 24% pressure rate, 87.3 pass rush grade. Now back-to-back weeks with 80 plus pass rush grade. But again, like you said, tougher matchup this week, but there is a nice tackle floor there if you have to start him. Frankie Louvu, same thing, 2.5 sacks last week. That was against the Cleveland Browns, right? So those sacks are a lot easier to come by. I don't necessarily expect him to do that this week. He'll have those types of games, but could be a little bit more inconsistent in that regard, especially as somebody that's, just kind of average to below average as far as tackle efficiency goes as well.
Yep.
And then on the Ravens side of things, anybody stand out to you for this defense?
I mean, I do like Odafe. Odafe's always match up against Brandon Coleman. So I think he has a little bit better matchup. I think Coleman has a 49.5 pass block grade. So Kyle Van Noy, again, it looks like when you look at the grades, a good matchup, but I think Wiley is a little bit better when it comes to pass blocking, a little bit in the green. But Justin actually, did he changed his name too? I don't remember what Matabuike's changed name. Yeah. Tough matchup against a pretty stout Washington offensive line. The guards in the center, both in the green when it comes to pass blocking. Biadasz is 11th, a top 10, top 11 center. So when it comes to sacks or tackles, things could be tough to come by. I like Kyle Hamilton. I'll still continue to start Kyle Hamilton. Yeah. I'm probably sitting Trenton Simpson. I just don't like his usage. Seems to be coming off passing situations, third downs. So that full-time role, and then Roquan's an every week starter. I don't think we really need to we don't need to really bring him up.
Yeah, no need to dive into Roquan. We're definitely starting him, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Trenton Simpson is a must start by any means. Just coming off the field a lot more than we'd like. So they're clearly not comfortable deploying him in a full-time role. And yeah, the matchup too, like you said, Odafe Owe. I mean, it's weird what Washington does with their left tackle. They're constantly rotating that position. They got Brandon Coleman, who hasn't been great. Like he's had, a couple good games, but usually was like against Arizona or something like that. And then Cornelius Lucas, who actually has been a good pass blocker for them at left tackle. They rotate those guys depending on the drive. So it's like kind of hit and miss as far as, what to expect from this Washington offensive line. But as a whole, they've actually been a pretty strong unit at 28th worst matchup for pass rushers. So that means they're whatever that is, the fourth or fifth best pass blocking unit in the league. So Jaden Daniels has been
really good. Yeah, he seems to be, again, kind of elusive. I'm not going to compare him to Lamar Jackson, but definitely quick, definitely elusive, and has just a cannon and is just really accurate, gets the ball out quick.
Yeah. And then just quickly with Kyle Hamilton too, like he gave up the slot role last week, or not last week, so I guess week 4 to Marlon Humphrey, but then came back into that slot role in week 5. And it seemed like Nate Wiggins, it was just dependent on how the team wanted to trust the rookie Nate Wiggins at outside corner. And they reduced Nate Wiggins snaps this past week, obviously going against Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. So they put Marlon Humphrey back outside. Nobody could have covered those guys anyways. It didn't matter. They were on fire. But yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see if they get more comfortable with Nate Wiggins as the season goes on, which means that maybe Marlon Humphrey does play more on the slot, and we just see Kyle Hamilton eat up a lot more of those box snaps instead of splitting his time between the box and the slot. So either way, like Kyle Hamilton, and fine starting him in a good matchup against Washington, giving up the fourth most tackles per game to the safety position. All right, let's take a quick ad break here, and we will be right back. Hey everyone, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. As an adult, do you make time to learn new things as often as you'd like, or was that lost in childhood? Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back-to-school era could come at any age. Therapy can be really useful to get a better understanding of how your mind actually works and to become more aware of your own patterns of behavior and how to improve them. It's useful for everybody, not just people struggling with something specific. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp is a convenient, flexible, and entirely online way to get therapy that's right for you. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you could switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/PFF fantasy to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PFF fantasy. All right, back at it here for the later slate of games, and the Los Angeles Chargers going against the Denver Broncos this week. My hashtag Justice for Derwin campaign did not work. His suspension was upheld, and then he was on a bye week last week, but he's back now and can be safely put back into starting lineups here. And a nice matchup against the Broncos as well, giving up the third most tackles per game to the safety position. So liking Derwin in his return here. As far as the rest of the Chargers go, I got some question marks as far as who's going to be available for this game. Joey Bosa, I can't imagine this guy just can't stay healthy. He's probably not back. I know he's kind of working off to the side during practice on whatever that was Monday night. We'll see if he comes back or not. It's going to be hard to trust him in his first week back. I'm not necessarily trusting Bud Dupree either, who had 2 sacks last week, only played 50% of the snaps. He was clearly behind Khalil Mack and Tuli Tuipulotu.
Yep.
So yeah, those Mack and Tuli, those will be the guys that if I do have to trust Chargers edge rushers, those will probably be the ones to go. Unless Joey Bosa's in there, then it's probably just Khalil Mack. But the other question mark, Mike, Junior Colson. If Junior Colson is back, which he does seem like he's back practicing, as far as what I saw today, I do worry about that Los Angeles Chargers linebacker rotation coming back. So I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm kind of in like a wait and see approach if Junior Colson is back this week, where I don't necessarily feel comfortable in deploying Diane Henley this week.
Yeah, that's going to be the big situation to watch. Diane Henley's been playing pretty well, so he's been calling the plays. He's gotten that experience. So, I mean, if gun to the head, if I had to choose one, I'd probably start Henley. Perriman, just I don't really have any interest, but yes, Junior Colson could throw a monkey wrench into things when it comes to that rotation. I mean, if I was going to do a projection, I would probably think it would probably be more of a rotation between Perriman and Colson, but I don't know. I would be sitting. If you have Henley, he might have been a waiver wire pickup. So hopefully you have clear options that you can start with confidence in so that you can take that wait and see approach to see how things shake out. So my confidence is Henley first, then just Perriman and Colson down below, and I actually probably trust Colson even above Perriman at this point.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I'm right there with you as far as who to trust in this group if we have to. But the major concern is more just that when we saw all 3 of these guys healthy, that none of them were full-time players, right? So
right.
Yeah, that's kind of the concern there. But I'm with you. Like Henley's been the best bet of the group so far, but not necessarily desperate to put any of these guys in a lineup right now, especially against Denver, who's been 29th in tackles allowed per game to the linebacker position. So not a great matchup there either. And then on the Denver side of things, as far as their linebackers go, we saw obviously Cody Barton playing the full-time role with our king, Alex Kingleton, on injured reserve. But then Justin Sternad he's been coming off on passing downs, but as getting a starting role here as the LB2 and has been effective as well. So, for those deeper leagues, Justin Sternad has definitely been somebody that you can roster and probably feel comfortable starting the rest of the season in those deep leagues, because there's not really anybody knocking on the door for that LB2 spot right now.
No, and he's been playing well around the line of scrimmage. I think he had a 1.5 yard tackle depth last week, so he's making an impact around the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. So nice to see there, promising stuff for Sternad. Then other things for Denver. I mean, the Zach Allen has been amazing for DT required leagues, a volume monster. The pass rush metrics are there as well. He has been an excellent DT required option. He's probably going to be locked into starting lineups for the most part going forward here, just because he plays so much. There was even a week he played 100% of snaps, which is insane for that position. And then Jonathan Cooper continues to kind of fly under the radar for IDP. He's another one playing a ton, decent pass rush metrics, should get some Trey Pipkins this week, but Cooper does play on both sides, and I think Rashawn Slater is also back. But there's the room for Jonathan Cooper to kind of keep things going if you've been starting him.
Yeah, I think Zach Allen definitely is going to take advantage of the Trey Pipkins matchup for sure.
Yeah, Pipkins, not great. But anything else for Denver for you? Or
I like Riley Moss. I do like Riley Moss. He's been targeted double than what Patrick Surtain has. I think Surtain had it's been targeted 18 or 19 times. I think Moss has 34. So he's getting a few more of those targets, a few more of those tackles. And Moss has held his own. I mean, if you look at the average separation, the play on ball rate, very, very similar. So Riley Moss has been a very good corner. It's just when you gotta pick your poison. Do you want to target Patrick Surtain or do you want to target Riley Moss? People are targeting Riley Moss a little bit more, but he's making plays on the ball. I mean, he's been doing really well. I think he's got a 2-yard separation. So he's a pretty decent cover corner. I think he's really emerging. I mean, Surtain has when has talked him up and said, "Hey, dude's my boy. He's really good."
Yeah, he's been great. We talked about him last week with Johnny the Greek. He's a big fan of his as well, and we literally talked about that exact thing, right? It's the lesser of two evils. You're going to target Moss over Surtain, and I mean in the slot as well. They've been going after Jaquan McMillian. He's been getting targeted a ton too, right? So trying to avoid both of those outside corners. The only thing with the Chargers and Jaquan McMillian, the Chargers well below average in 11 personnel rate. They also run the ball quite a bit, so not necessarily expecting McMillian to get involved. But I'm with you. I like the Riley Moss call. He's been solid.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the Detroit Lions at the Dallas Cowboys. Where would you like to start here, Mike?
I mean, you get Aiden Hutchinson back after bye, so that's always a good thing. I guess what I'll be curious about is if anything changes with the Detroit linebackers. I mean, I don't think, I think Alex Anzalone, I think he's probably still going to be the 3-down guy, but I don't know what will change in terms of the rotation there, because even with Derek Barnes out, Jack Campbell still being used around the same amount, has that same usage. They're using Jack Campbell, they're using Jalen Reeves-Maybin, and they're using Malcolm Rodriguez. So outside of Alex Anzalone, is Jack Campbell, is he turning into like the Bijan Robinson or the Kyle Pitts of IDP? Is just like all of this talent and just not being utilized. I mean, I guess they're utilizing it. They're winning. So, I mean, obviously, they're not, they're doing what's best for the team. But as for fantasy owners and IDP owners, we want to see them on the field all the time. So if I have, that's going to be what I'm going to be looking at is what happens with those, with that LB2 position.
Yeah, it's especially like you spend a first round pick on the guy, right? Like that kind of being the main thing. Like it's one thing if he was a second or third round pick, like I get it, but you spend up like hefty draft capital to get this guy and not deploy him. Like when they played him the last week that they played before their bye, 68% of snaps. Like I wrote about it in the fantasy report, but like if there was ever an indication that the Lions do not want to deploy 2 full-time linebackers, even when it comes to ones that they spent a first-round pick on, like this was it. Like 68% for Campbell, Malcolm Rodriguez 34%, Ben Neiman 26%, Jalen Reeves-Maybin at 20%, and then freaking Trevor Nowatzki at 9%. Like what the who is this guy that they're putting out there? Like they are obsessed with the rotation. Derek Barnes on injured reserve, but outside of Alex Anzalone, this is just a ridiculous rotation that I'm trying to stay away from.
And they were using Barnes on the edge too. He wasn't even really being deployed as an off-ball linebacker. I think he was kind of almost that Marcus Davenport replacement, and they were utilizing him on the edge anyway.
Yeah, it definitely seemed that way. So just the mess there. I don't expect them to change at this point. And then Brian Branch missed their game before the bye week. It was a concussion, so he's had a bunch of time here to kind of heal up. He should be back this week as well. So like to see that for the Lions defense and for us for IDP, because he's definitely a must start. How about on the Dallas side of things, Mike?
I think obviously Eric Kendricks is going to be a must start. I think I'm going to have him probably within my top 5, top 6 linebackers this week. Good matchup. But DeMarvion Overshown has, the minute we declare these guys full-time linebackers, then next week they get like 20% of the snaps. But it does look like, again, he's getting those full-time snaps. He's getting that full-time role. I think he had 100% of the snaps this past week. I don't know if it was matchup dependent, but I mean, he was on the field for 100% of the snaps. And much like Pittsburgh's situation, the defensive line and the edge rushers are being depleted at a very fast rate. Still not sure what Micah Parsons is, but Marshawn Nealon's going to be missing, not necessarily the season, but I think he's going to be missing some time. DeMarcus Lawrence on IR. Dallas edge rusher. I mean, just because you can pick somebody up doesn't mean you should. So I'm probably not picking anybody up from Dallas as far as an edge rusher goes.
Yeah.
I mean, you got KJ Henry, and I think they called up Carl Lawson from the practice squad, and I think they signed him to the active roster. So it's a mess. And again, I'm probably not dealing with it and messing with it.
Yeah, it's bad over there. That's kind of the thing with recording like earlier in the week. We don't necessarily know exactly what the practice report's going to look like for the week, but Micah Parsons probably feels unlikely for this week. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm with you. It's a mess. I mean, Chauncey Golston played a 90% snap share last week, which was like, if you really need a volume dependent player, like that's kind of the guy that I might have to go after. And then, the linebackers for sure, Eric Hendricks and DeMarvion Overshown, I think are kind of locked in here as safe IDP options. I mean, yeah, like you said, 100% snaps for Overshown last week. Didn't feel like that one was necessarily matchup dependent. I don't know if it was, then, the Lions are also a very run heavy offense. So I don't think that would change too much this week, but he was trending in that direction.
Yeah, he was.
And he's played really well.
And I think he's showing, and I think he's just showing to be the better linebacker over Damone Clark anyway.
Yeah.
Regardless. He just is so fast. I mean, he just plays so fast.
Yeah, he's looked really good out there. So that's been nice to see for a guy that missed basically all of his rookie season, right? So, he missed all of it. I don't think he played. He got hurt.
No, I think he got hurt right in the. I think he got hurt during training camp, and it's good to see that. I think it was a knee injury, so it hasn't really sapped his quickness, his burst. So it seems all that has remained intact, which is a good thing.
Yeah, so I'm feeling pretty optimistic about Overshown and kind of excited to see what he can do, and especially for dynasty purposes, how he kind of moves his way up the dynasty stock as well. So let's go to Atlanta and Carolina now, and we'll start with the Atlanta Falcons, who were without Troy Anderson last week. I don't know if they'll be without Troy Anderson again this week. It was a short week last week, so it wasn't too surprising considering he was dealing with a knee injury. The chances that he's back this week are probably pretty good. If not, JD Bertrand is probably going to be the guy again. But again, that wasn't a full-time role for him.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, so it probably a deeper league play at the very best. And then the other thing too with Atlanta, man, we talked about it last week. Sweet D Alford, he was one of our like sneaky good plays last week because going against the Bucks, who were one of those high 11 personnel teams, and Alford playing in the slot, hadn't really faced a team like that a lot this season. Had 3 tackles on the first drive or something like that, and then gets a freaking concussion. It was that was a frustrating one for me. I was really annoyed by that. It basically just ruined the rest of Thursday Night Football for me. But if he's back this week, because he did have the 10-day rest there, Carolina is another one of those high 11 personnel rate teams. They're top 5 in that regard. So we'll see. I get if we don't want to trust them again, especially coming off the concussion. But I did like Sweet D last week. And then Matthew Judon is the other piece of the Atlanta defense that I wanted to kind of focus on. He's going to face a lot of Taylor Moton this week for the Carolina Panthers, who are one of the better pass blocking units as a whole. But Taylor Moton is 14th in pass blocking grade for offensive tackles with a 79.2. Judon has had a couple of weeks now with back-to-back 70-plus pass rush grades, but he's yet to deliver more than 3 pressures in a game this season. He's coming off injury, as we know, not playing quite as much as he did with New England, 61% of snaps so far this year on average. Previous years, he was 70%, 76%, 81%. So definitely trending down here as he kind of gets older, but also coming off the injury. So I think just tempering expectations for what Matthew Judon is going to be the rest of the season, but especially this week in a tougher matchup against the Panthers.
Yeah, the Falcons are one of those really inept. They just can't get pass rushers right. As a team, they're generating a 21.4% pressure rate, and they've generated 37 total pressures. So they are the worst team in the NFL when it comes to pass rushing. So you don't necessarily, like you said, need to play Matthew Judon. Good matchups for Jesse Bates. And just something to keep an eye on. I think Nate Landman's window has opened up. So I think I read or someone shared with me that if and when he does come back, there still could be more of a rotation, could go back to that rotation between Landman and Anderson. So something to keep an eye on with there. But there's I think it's a 21-day window for Landman. So that they can open up. So just something to keep an eye on. If Anderson does play, I don't think Landman's going to play immediately coming off of IR. So I do think you could probably still play him if you need the linebacker. But I mean, even Caden Ellis, he's been okay. So I don't even necessarily think you need to play Caden Ellis if you have better options at the position, as it is kind of a tough matchup for opposing linebackers. Carolina's offense can be hit or miss. It's been hit or miss with Andy Dalton. So not much of a running game, not really much of a tight end to really track, or, slot receivers. I don't know if Carolina plays a whole lot of 11 personnel. So again, kind of a tough matchup. Carolina's offense can kind of be hit or miss. And if it's one of those games where, they only have 45, 50 offensive plays, there's not going to be very many tackle attempts for anybody.
Yeah, don't love the matchup at all. And like you said, with Nate Landman and Troy Anderson, we saw like a pretty situation-specific rotation with those guys prior to the Landman injury, where I think it was Landman playing on early downs and Anderson playing on passing downs, or the other way around. I can't remember exactly.
No, I think it was Anderson that was coming in for Landman. I think Anderson had
a
little bit more of the advantage in the rotation.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised to kind of see that again. Unfortunately, as good as Anderson had been for us in IDP, especially in that whatever that was, week 4, where he had the 16 tackles and pick 6. But something to monitor there for sure. On the Carolina side, Mike, what did you see from the Panthers this past week?
Really liked what I saw to Trevin Wallace. So I know in my waiver article out this week, I didn't write up Trevin Wallace this week because I wrote him up last week because I didn't want to do a repeat. But obviously, if he's available, if you're doing your waiver claims, obviously pick him up. I think even if Josie Jewell comes back, I mean, outside of those two, I mean, you've got Claudine Cherilus and you got Chandler Wooten at linebacker. So I would imagine, I mean, Trevin Wallace had a pretty good grade for his first go around, played pretty well. So I would assume, or I would probably, I would assume that Wallace is probably going to have a pretty decent snap share, even if Jewell does come back. I'm making the assumption that Jewell is going to wear the dot because that's exactly what happened. Thompson left, he got hurt. Jewell then came in, wore the dot, then Jewell got hurt, and then it was Wallace. So, just one of those domino effect. But Jewell was the initial one that did take over the play calling duties when Thompson got hurt. So, but like I said, I think Wallace is probably going to be in line for, I mean, at least a 70 to 75% snap share. Really efficient with his tackles, played really well, really quick. I mean, he did, he's a quick linebacker, and some of those athletic traits that showed from the combine definitely stood out in his first game.
Yeah, he looked great. He was definitely a fun player to watch here, and it is basically his debut this past week with the 15 total tackles as well. But I'm with you. I think if Josie Jewell does come back, it's not 100% that he will be back this week, but if he does, he's going to be the full-time guy. And like you said, Wallace probably around that 70-75% snap range would probably come off on those passing downs, right? But still worth kind of rostering in those deeper leagues, right? Because Shaq Thompson's not coming back this season, so it makes sense that Trevin Wallace is kind of locked himself in as a starter in Carolina right now. Other than that, Jadeveon Clowney got hurt last game, shoulder injury. This was for deeper leagues. Jadeveon Clowney wasn't being played in most formats outside of those deeper leagues just because of volume. And then his replacement was Charles Harris, who also another volume-dependent option, but nothing too exciting there. Anything else for Carolina for you before we move on to Sunday Night Football?
Nope.
All right, let's go on to the Sunday Night Football game, which hopefully doesn't get delayed an hour and a half again this week, Mike. But Cincinnati, New York Giants is the matchup. Where would you like to start here?
The defensive line should be very interesting. I'm very intrigued at the Trey Hendrickson, Andrew Thomas matchup. So that should be a interesting matchup. Hubbard does have the better matchup, so he's coming off of a really good game. Jermaine Elyu Minor, I'm going to
Illuminor, yeah.
Illumina, yeah. Definitely better pass blocker than a run blocker. So
Sure.
I think Hubbard does have some upside for some tackles. But he's been a pretty good pass blocker. Unfortunately, Dax Hill, who's been playing pretty well, he is out for the year. I do, however, like DJ Turner as his cornerback streamer. Looked up his name. His name is actually Juan Drago, so that's a pretty badass name.
Oh,
So, start Juan Drago. He's got a
oh man,
70% play on ball rate over the last couple of weeks, 11 tackles, and the Giants are allowing the second most tackles to the cornerback position. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson has been targeted heavily. Malik Neighbors is probably going to be back, I would imagine. So DJ Turner should be pretty busy this week.
buddy. If his name is Juan Drago, how
That's
are
what I
we
looked
not
up.
starting?
I that's what it said on Pro Football Reference.
It is, yeah. There it is, Juan Drago, and it's JD too, not DJ. But he's going by DJ Turner. But how do you not go by Juan Drago? That's an
I know,
amazing,
seriously, that's an amazing name.
buddy. I might just change my name to Juan Drago right now. Imagine Juan Drago Macri.
I don't know if you can pull it off there,
Yeah,
Macri. I don't think that's a name you can
I
pull
don't
off.
think I have the quote unquote aura for that. But
Or as
yeah,
the kids say these days, I don't think you have the Riz.
I know, yeah. So, but yeah, so I love that. Juan Drago definitely coming in here. It could be a nice potential streaming option along with Cam Taylor Britt. And then, yeah, I mean, the linebackers for the Bengals, we're feeling pretty comfortable about starting those guys. And then Sam Hubbard, I don't know. I think he just kind of sucks right now. Like, at least, like you said, he doesn't draw Andrew Thomas. Jermaine Illuminor hasn't been bad. Like we saw Sam Hubbard get stiff armed by Lamar Jackson last week, which was pretty hilarious. But yeah, he had the big week. He's still among like the worst pass rushers for the position in the league right now. He's been awful, but maybe he could get that tackle floor back because he did have 9 tackles last week. There's just nothing else there for him.
Yep.
And then on the Giant side of things, anybody that you want to highlight here for me?
I'm kind of getting concerned with Bobby Okereke.
Okay.
Snap share. I mean, obviously, 100% of the snaps wearing the dot, but just not as productive as he was last season. So, like, if you have a linebacker room of, say, like Alex Anzalone, Cody Barton, Logan Wilson, Bobby Okereke, I'm probably sitting Bobby Okereke, especially in kind of this middling matchup. I don't even think he's had double-digit tackles yet, so I don't think Okereke is really necessarily a must start this week. So his production has been a little bit concerning. Defensive line matchup against Cincinnati's offensive line. Thibodeau has been okay, but I've never been a big fan, so I'm definitely I'm not someone I'm really gonna talk up. But I do like Brian Burns' matchup on Mims. So that, and then you've got Flott and Banks matching up on Higgins and Chase, so they should be pretty busy. Drew Phillips is graded pretty well, but I don't know how. I don't have in front of me what Cincinnati's 11 personnel, what they run out as far as slot receivers. I know they're, Civis is so I don't know what type of action Phillips will have. So, but I do like Burns's matchup on Mims. I think Dexter Lawrence has just been an absolute disruptor. So I think he's another guy you can start not only in DT required, but I think you can start in defensive line general leagues. He's just a must start in pretty much any format.
Yeah, Sexy Dexy's been amazing. The 3-sack game last week, obviously, but he's been somebody that, I mean, as a nose tackle, just among the best defensive linemen in the entire league, right? So, just really impressive stuff from him. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Burns is fine, but yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau, it's just hard to get behind him right now. Like, again, the best thing he has going for him is the volume, but just hasn't been that player, that fifth overall pick just yet. So kind of still just tempering expectations with him. We'll see what happens with the slot for the Giants. Drew Phillips and Cordell Flott. Phillips did return last week from injury, but he did not play his usual starting role. Nick McLeod actually handled the majority of the slot duties, which could be potentially them kind of easing Phillips back into the lineup. But yeah, I don't know if I'm trusting any of those guys right now. As far as the Andrew Phillips, Nick McLeod, Cordell Flott, at least until we see that usage return to normal there.
Yeah, and Pinnock and Newbin should be interesting safety plays. Right. I know Newbin plays a little bit deeper. Pinnock, I think, has a little bit. I think he's a little bit more balanced, but Cincinnati is a pretty good matchup for the safety position. So, I mean, Newbin could be around the ball with some deeper plays, and that, like I said, some upside for Pinnock. But yeah, like I said, I mentioned just Okereke again, and then even McFadden. I think his usage has been up and down also with McFadden. So if I'm not really, like I said, with these linebackers, they're not must starts right now. I don't think.
No, I don't think so, right? Like, I think just, like you said with Okereke, like just more matchup dependent, like almost in the same kind of vein as Patrick Queen, right? Like where, if the matchup is good, he's 100% player. We could feel better about him. If the matchup is, below average to bad, and there could potentially be better options that week. So I'm with you. It's not overly encouraging stuff right now from Bobby Okereke. He'll have his games, but we just may not get it consistently from him this season. And yeah, McFadden as well, though those snaps being up and down, it's just hard to trust outside of really deep leagues.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to the final game of the week, Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets, who will have a new head coach, or at least an interim head coach this week. But want to start on the Buffalo side of things with Dorian Williams, who, we could be calling Kingleton 2.0 or Prince Dorian or Princeton, maybe, because he has been really, really effective with his time in a non-full-time role, right? He came into last week with a 21% tackle rate. That was the best mark among all linebackers who have played at least 100 snaps. And then he repeated that rate in that game last week with a 21% tackle rate again, despite not playing full-time role. So a lot from very similar to what we have seen from Alex Singleton in the past before he became a full-time linebacker. It's still very early. I'm not actually ready to crown him that. But really, really encouraging stuff there from, I'm going to go with Princeton for now. And yeah, I feel fine starting him just because he's been so effective, deeper leagues for sure. And then it was nice to see Terrell Bernard back last week as well, returning from that pec strain. Right back into 100% snap role, leader of that defense. And he didn't have like the most effective tackling day, but at least got the interception for us. And I don't think there's really any concern there about starting Terrell Bernard going forward. But how you feeling about Terrell Bernard, and how you feeling about nicknames here for Dorian Williams? You got any good ones?
I got to tell you, Princeton was pretty good. So I think we might have the winner there. But
there we go. Nice.
But yeah, no, I mean, with Terrell Bernard, I mean, we kind of feared the worst because these pectoral injuries have never turned out to be have never been like best case scenario. Hey, missing a few games. It's like it's always been like a full tear and then that's it. So I think he only ended up missing 3 games. So it's definitely good to have him. Definitely good to have him back, not suffer any type of setbacks. Went back to his normal role in his 3-down role. So I think you can feel confident getting him back in your lineup.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then on the defensive line side of things for Buffalo, Gregory Rousseau, he's been really good. He's only had the 1 game with the sacks, right? It was the 3-sack game in week 1. But I still really like him. Like, he's going to play both sides of the offensive line, mostly going to be against the right tackle, which in this case is Olu Fashanu. Olu Fashanu right now, 40.0 pass blocking grade, which ranks 70th of 77 qualifying offensive tackles. Gregory Rousseau is top 15 in pass rush metrics for the year, also playing ideal snaps for the position, just continue to be one of the top edge rushers. We just got to understand, the ebbs and flows of the position. Sacks will come, then they won't. And it's just, kind of what we have to do with this position is trust the pass rush metrics, not necessarily the past production. So I like Gregory Rousseau this week as well. And then Ed Oliver missed week 5. He was ruled out early for that one. So again, it's a Monday night game, gets a little tricky. There's not really any obvious replacements in Buffalo along the interior of their defensive line that I would trust. So if he's out, I would hope that you have like another, maybe a New York Jets defensive lineman that you could plug in his place, but might be hard to trust unless we get some clarity before the game.
Yeah, definitely with you on Rousseau. I looked through, last week, he was getting off the snap in just over half of a second. He had a quick pressure rate of 13.5%, and he just missed a sack on Stroud. He blew him up, just got the ball out. So, he was literally a step away from a sack. So Stroud's pretty good, but Allen is another one who we'll see, but he's just getting to he's just beating the blocks on a very consistent basis. So 78% of the snaps last week. I think he's just a guy you continue to start, and because once he does, if he has those blow up weeks, he's gonna win you a week just by himself.
Yep. Absolutely. And then we'll see what happens with the safeties as well. I know Taylor Rapp didn't play last week. We'll see if he's back healthy. Cole Bishop filled in for him, played a lot more closer to the line of scrimmage as well, which was nice to see. But and DeMar Hamlin's been really productive despite playing more of the deep safety role. So for those deeper leagues, he's not a bad option. On the Jets side of things, Quinnen Williams, he had a really nice matchup last week against the interior of the Vikings offensive line. Just didn't really do anything overly encouraging for us from a pass rush perspective. He's still like among the top defensive tackle options, but he's kind of moving away from like that elite top 5 tier right now, at least for redraft right now until we kind of see it. But I want to see, more of his usual encouraging performances at the very least to kind of trust him along the, among the top 3 or top 5 defensive tackles right now, because just been struggling and it's not the best matchup against the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen specifically not taking a lot of sacks. So matchup for the Jets defensive line all around.
No, I'm sorry. I got that messed up now that I'm thinking about it in my head when I was talking about Gregory Rousseau. Aaron, he's going after Aaron Rodgers, who is not elusive anymore. I don't know why I said Josh Allen when I was talking
Did
about
you say Josh?
Gregory Rousseau. So,
I didn't even catch it.
But no, I correcting myself now after the fact. But no, Greg Rousseau definitely has sack upside against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and it's tougher the other way, right? For the Jets going against Josh Allen, like you said, for those exact reasons. So Will McDonald, maybe not the best matchup for him this week, especially as somebody that doesn't have like a strong production floor. And then what's going on with CJ Mosley? He's missed 3 games now.
3 games.
Yeah, don't know if he's going to be back. I thought he wasn't even going to be out long because he seemed like he was questionable for the first game after the injury, and that was a Thursday night game. So to miss more games after that is definitely concerning here. So if he can't go, Jamien Sherwood has been really effective and 100% player in his stead. So we'll see what happens there. But have you seen anything news wise on CJ Mosley? Because I haven't.
No, I haven't. No, but Sherwood, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the 3rd graded linebacker overall. So he's played very well. Seems to always kind of be in a good spot. So I with a Monday night game, it's definitely going to be tricky. But because if Mosley is active and you're a Jamien Sherwood owner, then you're kind of risking a 0. So unless on your waiver wire someone just got impatient and dropped CJ Mosley, I don't know, but the Monday night definitely makes it a little tricky. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on those practice reports.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I didn't even realize that Jamien Sherwood was grading so well. Like you said, 3rd highest graded safety, 3rd highest graded safety or linebacker in coverage as well with an 87.0. He's a former safety too, coming out of college. So he's got some coverage chops to him, but nice to see there for Jamien Sherwood. But definitely tough to kind of figure out what's going on with these guys unless we get some, encouraging practice reports for CJ Mosley heading into Monday night, and hopefully we do.
Yep.
All right, that is going to do it for us. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in, watching, liking, subscribing, all that stuff. I appreciate it very much. And again, hopefully it helps you guys win your matchups this week. If you do still have questions, feel free to ask in the comment section, reach out via Twitter. I always do my best to get to them all. I know Mike does as well. So also, big thank you to the man himself, Mr. Mike Woellert, for helping me break down this slate of games to hopefully get you good folks ready for a Week 6 win. Mike, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this with me again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, as always.
Of course. And yeah, before you go, for anybody that might not know, please let everyone know what else you have going on over at the idpshow.com.
Rankings and green dot article and waiver wire article is now up. Rankings should probably be up tomorrow morning. Yeah, week 6. Let's hope for some good juju and no injuries and no whammies.
Let's hope so. No whammies. Yeah, let's hope the injuries being the main thing that we want to avoid this week for sure. It's just continuing to be a pain in the ass. But as for me, IDP Fantasy Report, that's out now. I linked it in the episode description. That'll list off all the waiver wire targets for this week, snap shares, utilization nuggets, plenty of my thoughts and notes for every team as well. IDP Rankings article will be linked in the episode description when it's out. But again, feel free to ask those start sit questions in the comments. I'll be back on Monday morning doing a Week 6 IDP recap, so be sure to check that out as well. Again, appreciate everyone for tuning in. I have been Jon Macri, and until next time.